suddenly you get to mid-age, and this is the moment where you're deemed to start to become invisible. I don't think you really appreciate that until you get to that age group.
Yeah.
It's sort of like mid-40s, 50s.
Lou, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited for this chat. You're an awarded creative director with experience at places like B&B, BBH, Sky Creative and M&C Saatchi, to name just a few. And you've got an incredible client list that includes Bacardi, Innocent Drinks, we've got Effie Worldwide on there, Planet Positive Productions and Natural History Museum as well, which is an amazing list. You're also chairwoman of the TypoCircle, which is an association I've got a lot of love for. And you've been listed in campaigns 40 over 40. We'll get back to that shortly. And I know you're really committed to supporting others growing in the industry through your teaching, your mentoring and awards judging as well. But 6 years ago, you left the world of advertising to go out on your own, and you created your own studio called Here.We.Go. So can you tell me a bit more about your studio and what you enjoy about running your own practice?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Daisy. I really loved working in advertising, and I've loved working across all of the design spectrums. But it was something I'd always wanted to do, set up by myself. And I decided to do something, not just any design studio or any creative storytelling studio. It was something that was close to my heart. Back in my 20s, I did a lot of environmental work and worked with the great apes and really was really passionate about stuff with purpose. So I thought, well, what can I now do with my skill set? So Here.We.Go was created to work with change makers. I know a lot of people use those words now, but people really that were committed to making a change in the world. So we go by the premise of we design change. We work with maybe female or underrepresented film directors. We work with people championing creativity, environmental clients such as the Listening Planet. Anything that's going to make a big change to the world, people or society. And we're super proud of that.
And so you should be. That sounds incredible. Thank you so much. If we can step back for a second, back into the world of advertising, when you worked in that as part of agencies, and obviously we're here to talk about age. Mm-hmm. We know that only 5% of ad agency employees are over 50. And in fact, a lot of those aren't in the creative department as well. Uh-huh. Does that reflect your experience that you had in the world of advertising?
I think it's becoming more common recently. And interestingly, I know we've sort of thought about it before, but how many of those 5% are actually women as well? There's definitely, particularly in that part of our industry, a massive gap in age and also diversity in general. Yeah. Once you get into more senior rankings and in the creative department. There's lots of reasons for that, I believe. I think that it happens more in advertising than it does necessarily in design studios. Yeah. You do see much older designers in the design studios. But again, if you really think about it, quite often more men in the older senior roles. Yes, so it's not a surprise, but I do think it's something that's becoming a bigger and bigger divide and a bigger gap, certainly in ad agencies that I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think that the latest stats that I found is that in the UK, about 17% of creative directors are women. In the US, it's 11.5%. Mm-hmm. So if we think that advertising is probably even less than that from your experience, it's really shocking figures and there's a lot to be done still.
Absolutely, yeah.
And thinking about the area of diversity that we're really going to focus on today is age. Yeah. How do you feel a generationally diverse team impacts creative output?
Well, I think it's essential. I think any agency that is losing a variety of ages in their creative teams is missing a trick, quite frankly. Yeah. Younger creatives learn so much more from someone that's been through everything, experienced pretty much everything there is to experience making creative work, whether that's in design or advertising or branding or writers, whatever it happens, production, all of those different areas. There's always something to learn. And vice versa, there's always something to learn from younger people that are coming new and fresh and enlivened into the industries. So I think there's also a thought there that our clients, the clients that we're actually working for, benefit from a more diverse range of ages in their creative teams. there's that, someone that's a bit older can maybe empathize with slightly older clients and the older audience in a way with life experience that maybe younger creatives can't do. But that doesn't mean to say that older creatives can't work for younger brands and younger creatives can't work for brands that are targeted towards older people. It just means if you've got that diverse team, you have diverse conversation and you can get to a much, much better quality of result, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's lots of reasons, I believe, that there are less senior people in some of these creative departments. And I think that's a shame for the agencies and for the clients, to be honest.
What do you think those reasons are?
There's a few things, and this is my personal viewpoint, but I know there's a lot of people that do agree with me. Often you're deemed to be more expensive and agencies are cutting costs. And so, why would you want to work with someone that's much more expensive? Not always the case, actually. A lot of people just want to make creative work. They have creative souls and they just want to produce beautiful ideas. So it's not always the case, but it's an assumption.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I guess, because you have more world experience and because you're more experienced in general in the role, you're more confident often. You're not afraid to maybe question a brief or push back on something. And that can be seen as a little bit difficult, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not always.
Yeah.
And this is making general assumptions. That's why I'm very careful when I say this. But I think there is a general sort of thought about how someone older is going to work within the industry. And often it comes out that I think there's an assumption when you're older, you're not aware of what's going on in the digital realms or modern technology, which again, as a general rule, is an assumption. And it's certainly not something that I've experienced with anyone of my age group, or even in the 30s that are now being told that they're too old to understand this stuff. It's not how it is. It's about how you surround yourself with people that are excited about these things. And you can learn at any age. And you can be excited about new technology at any age. But it is an assumption that happens too often, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. And learning is obviously something we need to embrace at every stage in our career.
It keeps us alive, doesn't it?
Completely. Yeah. And in particular in design and in creative roles, there's a lot to keep on top of.
Yeah.
You said there's always something to learn. How do you personally stay ahead and stay current and stay learning? What's your approach to that?
I mean, some people might say I'm not. No, I just have a curious mind. I have loved being creative in some way since I was a child. You're always looking. I think if you keep your curiosity, you're always looking for stuff. So obviously, you're trawling the internet. I mean, you can't get away from it. I don't know whether it's good for us as human beings. At the moment, particularly, we're starting to see a lot of the bad sides of these technologies. But it is a useful tool in research and being able to find things and accessing stuff that maybe back in the old days, you'd have to go to the library and the books and you'd have to ask around, you'd have to go for training. It's all there at your hands. You can go to YouTube and find, and there's courses where you can sort of learn how to use the latest video platform, for instance, or what's happening with AI. Or at the moment, I've been immersed into the metaverse with the School of Communication Arts.
Oh, wow.
And teaching students as an avatar, which is completely bonkers and brilliant. It's a wonderful way to teach. It's a really great opportunity for me to actually show that I can be really creative in a virtual space to teach younger people. So it's about people giving you the opportunities to learn, but you need to be very open-minded and ask questions and not feel too like you should have no ego. It's really, don't be too proud to just explore and ask questions if you don't know something about something, but you're super interested. People are amazing at sharing their talents and their knowledge. And that's the best way, I think, just keep your mind open, listen to conversations, ask questions, be curious, and you will continually get more information that you can then go off by yourself and find out.
That's wonderful advice. You mentioned then about using the metaverse and obviously about AI and that sort of thing. It's a really exciting, perhaps challenging time for tech and creativity. Yeah. And obviously, as chairwoman of the TypoCircle, you're in a really interesting position where you're harnessing new tech, but also really celebrating the craft and the art behind special skills like typography. Do you think that mastery is and being the master of a craft is being lost, or are we're in a very interesting time of tension, I feel, between those two aspects?
Yeah, I think there is a massive tension, and this is the next few years are going to be really important for our industries. I'll come back exactly to that question, but I think there is another side with AI coming in. Evidently, there is a lack of craft if people are defaulting, clients are going to default to using AI. AI can be really, really useful. I'm not anti-AI as such. But I think the human mind and the human ideas and the human craft is going to become a really strong currency because of it. There will be sort of like the quick churn and burn that can be AI, the robots can just do.
Yeah.
That is inevitable. It's going to happen. There was actually a report from, I think it was the World Economic Forum only this week, and I know Creative Boom wrote about it. Graphic design, I hate the doom and gloom, but they put graphic design as number 11 on the list of careers that might not exist because of AI. I don't believe entirely that. I think graphic design in terms of just making and getting things out quick, yes, probably. If we're thinking about design thinking, creative ideas, and beautiful human craft, at the moment, they don't have hands to make things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's coming too. But craft is going to be sought after even more. So I think if we do double down on the things that we're able to do, abstract thinking with writing, painting, drawing, hand lettering, making beautiful papers and creating booklets with beautiful stock, laying things out, looking through our eyes through a camera and seeing what we're seeing in the world. AI can't replicate what's going on in our individual heads.
Yeah.
So I think there is a real importance to elevate the conversation of craft. Because now more than ever, it's going to be really important to us as creatives. It's going to be our currency that keeps us going. That's how I believe. In terms of what has been happening to craft over the last few years, certainly it may be we need to look back over the last 10 years. There had been for quite a long time a decline in craft. I would say more so in advertising. They're gonna hate me saying this, but more so in advertising than maybe design.
Okay.
But it was just get the work out quick. The typography, kerning a letter didn't really matter so much. And you can actually see that, sadly, in a lot of the work that's out there. But that also is coming into the design work too from studios, partly because if you lose your more senior practitioners, there's no one to teach beautiful craft anymore.
Yeah.
And then no one knows that there is anything to be taught. They know no different. So I think craft has been lost in the ether a little bit within the actual commercial side of things. But people's eyes, when we speak about typography or any sort of craft-based work through TypoCircle, when I go to speak to young people or even in a studio, people's eyes light up.
Yeah.
They go big and shiny and they're excited and people are smiling and people are animated. And that's because craft lightens our souls. We get excited about it as creative humans. And at that point, people want to learn. They just haven't had the access to learning, potentially. Some of these skills, even in some universities, have been dropped in terms of they might have one day in the whole 3 years on typography, as an example.
Shocking, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, because, it has a superpower. It can elevate a story. It can elevate the words that you're writing and putting down onto the paper. It's really, really, really important. So there has been a decline, but I think people are waking up to it and they're now seeking out, how do I get better at this stuff? What is there available to me? How can I use the environments that I have to elevate my work and propel everything? So I think it's just like vinyls. People are really into records again, and people want to read a book again rather than a Kindle.
Yeah.
It goes in peaks and troughs, these things. But I think because we've got so much technology happening in our lives, we actually want to care about the details now a little bit more.
Yeah, really good point. You've inspired. I just want to go and pick up some pens or something,
Yeah,
do something tactile now.
Stuff, don't you?
It means a lot to people. I really
does.
see that, and I'm pleased there's being a bit of a reappraisal of those elements of craft and touch and all those really important things in design. Obviously, curiosity is a really important principle to you. What other behaviours or skills are really important to creative people now, regardless of their age?
Resilience comes up a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's something that comes with age, definitely, but and the confidence. But I think resilience more than ever is going to be important. You've always needed resilience. Creative people, tend to be quite, we put our heart and soul into our work. So when someone goes, don't like it, and throws it out, you feel a bit mortified. You're like, oh my God, I spent so much time and it looks fantastic and it's not answered the brief. And we do tend to take that a little bit harder. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen day in, day out. And having resilience to pick yourself up and go again, come up with another idea, do another layout, think about it from a different angle, is a really important skill set. But I think resilience now also with what's happening with technology and really being true to yourself is going to be really, really important. Practice. Play, rather than practice. Play is important. Allow yourself to do stuff that you enjoy. It's not all about the work all the time. Go to exhibitions, listen to music, dance in your kitchen, go out with your friends, travel. You don't have to be abroad, but just go outside, look up at the clouds. I don't know, just stuff that allows you to be more excited about your work, and then allow yourself some time to play with ideas. Don't feel you have to go straight to the answer. You never know when that great idea is going to happen.
Yeah.
And without play, physical play, like putting the words and the images down on paper, you don't know when you're going to have a eureka moment with a layout, for instance, or a logo or a colour system or whatever you're doing. So I think, resilience and play on top of curiosity are kind of really important things to have.
That's wonderful. It sounds really fun when you put it like that.
It should be fun, shouldn't it? We're really lucky to be doing this.
It should, but there's a lot of pressure on production. As you mentioned earlier, things are speeding up very much and people are spending less time actually, not able to spend as much time on their creative practice perhaps, not able to spend as much time playing. So it's a really tricky balance.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, you don't have to tell me twice to dance in my kitchen. I'm all about that. How do you bring play then into your practice? In what way do you do that?
A good example is we were doing some icons and one of my designers got really stuck. It was a blank white page on the screen and I said, sketch. We sketched, nothing was really coming out. You could go through the normal channels, looking on Pinterest and doing all of these things. And it was the moment when I said, I tell you what, just print out so the logo for our client incorporated 3 rectangles. Go and print out loads of little rectangles. I like to not waste paper too often, but this is a perfect moment to use paper. Cut them out really big and start moving them around on the table. On the floor, on the walls, and just move them. It's like a big Jenga, basically. What can you do with these shapes? These 3 rectangles, that's all you've got. How many shapes can you make? And when you sort of get off the computer and you actually start using your hands and just sort of moving things around, you get to amazing ideas, and then you take pictures of those and then you replicate them in Illustrator and off you go. You've got your icon system. So that's a nice example of physically getting away and looking at things from a different angle. When it comes to writing, I think it's really important to just do brainstorms, be a bit silly with some of the words, make each other giggle. And there's lots of different ways. It's just about thinking, get off your seat, go and do something. Listen to some music. I mean, one of the things I do teach some of the younger creatives is if you're a bit stuck, listen to a different type of music for 5 minutes, do some work, then put some a different genre on.
Yeah.
And then do the work. It affects in you how you're feeling and the moods that you're creating and the energy levels even, and the way you're seeing that brief. That's really good. That's play to me. I mean, it's not going out and, jumping up and down all the time. It helps, gets you energized, but it is about just seeing things from a different angle.
I'm definitely going to take that on board in terms of the different music genres. It really affects your mood, doesn't it? Especially if I'm writing and you have to kind of close in a little bit and focus. So I'm definitely going to try that. Love that advice. Thank you. So you spoke about resilience before, and that's something that should be a two-way thing. Obviously, you can work on your own resilience, but it's something that we need to help people with as well. How can you best foster an environment where people really feel valued and listened to?
I mean, it is tricky when you have lots of different people. I've worked in departments and studios from just a few people through to sort of 20 odd, or even in my head of art capacity, working alongside the creative teams as well as the designers as well. The one thing I personally strongly believe in, and it doesn't happen all of the time, that's the problem, is respect, creating a respectful environment where everyone's ideas are actually listened to. You don't have to agree with everything. Healthy debate is really important, but having that open space and respect makes a big difference to how people feel about working for you, working for the company, working on the projects, and it creates a safe space. So I think as any sort of leader or department head, you really need to be able to understand that people need to feel safe to be able to feel resilient and keep going.
Yeah.
And in resilience is, there's also late hours in our job. We work long hours. We never really switch off as well. And I think that understanding that there needs to be some family time, there needs to be rest time for your team, helps to foster that resilience that then the creatives are going to sort of like create amazing work. It's really important. I think respect is the absolute key to that.
I really agree with that. And it's about, you mentioned there, sort of being able to turn off at the end of the day, and respecting your own time and your own boundaries as well is really important. Have you developed an approach that helps you leave work and focus on personal life?
I've been more aware of how important it is as I've got older. I think it's very, very difficult to switch off entirely. Your brain is going 100 miles an hour every time. Like, I'm looking at you, seeing those beautiful gold earrings, and then there's lovely plants around. Your brain is on fire all the time. You're seeing colours, and I just don't think you can 100% switch off. But that's what makes our brains unique and special, and why we do the jobs we do. But for that exact reason, we're more inclined to potentially burn out. And we need to be really mindful. Employers need to be mindful of that. And again, respectful of that. But I think we need to make sure we look after our own health. So going outside, getting fresh air, getting vitamin D, sunshine. Again, doing the things that you enjoy when you get home. I think you just need to make sure you look after not only your own well-being, basically, to allow you to have that resilience and to have the energy to go off and be curious. It's really, really important, that.
Yeah, it's a really good point about burnout. And it's something that we almost, I think, collectively expect in our 20s maybe, is that we put in long hours, long days, we give all of our energy to work. And I hope that as we get older, perhaps we can have another look at our values at work and perhaps rejiggle our work-life balance a little bit. Have your values in work changed throughout your time in the creative career that you have now?
I don't think my values have changed. My values have always been do the best work possible, be a good person, push boundaries and try to do something different. So the actual values haven't changed. But I think as you get more senior, you have the ability to push back a little bit on your time. And that's why I'm saying, as you go up the career ranks and you run in departments, you need to remember how hard you worked when you were younger, and to make sure you are protecting people for that reason. I think, I have gone through a stage of quite bad burnout about 10 years ago. And that has changed my viewpoint on work and work-life balance. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through that to really readdress and rebalance. So I do think it's important, like I say, to get outside, have regular breaks. It's going to keep you better. You're going to be more productive being that way. But I think value-wise, it's not about the time that you're putting in necessarily always. It's about the quality. But my values, I don't think my values have changed as such, but my awareness of protecting myself has.
Yeah. And when you responded to our Design Next survey and we asked, what advice would you have given yourself 10 years ago? You said, slow down.
Did I? I can't remember. I didn't realise I did that. But yeah, Yeah,
so that relates to your burnout period.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there any sort of practical advice that you would give people who feel they're tumbling towards that burnout stage in terms of speaking to their employers maybe, or dealing with life at work?
It's a bit tricky because we all know in design and creative agencies, it's not always that easy to access that help. But I do think speaking to someone is really, really important, someone that you trust, whether that's maybe your line manager, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's just your friends, family, but being able to speak and say, I'm tired, I'm getting sick all the time, I'm tired, whatever it happens to be that's happening to you. You do need to speak, and you shouldn't ever be embarrassed about speaking out about this stuff. And there is a lot of taboo still about speaking about burnout and any other sort of, mental or physical wellness issue. But it is super important you find someone. It might be if you don't feel you can speak to someone at work, you may need to protect yourself and start looking for another job, but you shouldn't have to do that. There should be things in place at agencies. Often the smaller agencies are easier to access that help, and because it's more of a family vibe. The bigger the agency, sometimes it is a bit trickier, but just finding someone to confide in and talk and see if they can help protect you with the workloads. That would be the first step, personally.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you, Lou. I appreciate that.
No, not at all.
Reflecting on your career then so far, have there ever been times where you felt too old or too young for the role that you've been in?
It's a great question because I did feel too young for a role. I felt when I first became head of design in one of the agencies, I definitely felt too young. I felt really awkward. I was like, oh my God, imposter syndrome. Now, whether that's a female thing, because a lot of women say they have imposter syndrome all the time, or whether it was because I genuinely thought, oh my God, how can I ask people to stay back for pictures and direct them when they're older than me? But you can, and people older than me gave me the opportunity because they believed in me and they saw something in my work and my ethics. So that's really wonderful. So I definitely felt too young, but I now understand what my parents always say to me. I don't feel too old for anything because in my head I'm sort of like really sprightly and stuff, and I'm not that old yet. I don't think there is a feeling of being too old, but like we've discussed already, there is probably a perception by others of being too old. I think that's the fairest answer. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. But there's some kind of perhaps quips or jokes that people make in the workplace, and I think it's worth us all being a little bit more aware of that, like you wouldn't get it, or it's a TikTok thing, or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Some really sort of quick bias that people take into short conversations like that can impact on how people feel about work. So I'm pleased that you haven't faced that, but it's something that is a bit of an undercurrent it can be an undercurrent in conversations. I'm keen for people to take a look at how they're talking to their peers.
I think that's really wise advice. But I don't think there's an age limit to being creative. Because like what we've been talking about already, you're born creative, you're born curious. I mean, we were just chatting the other day about Michael Wolff as an example from Wolff Wallen's days. And I'm not going to divulge his age because that's not fair. But he's older now, and he's just published the book about his career and the work, and he's still amazingly creative. And viewed as being amazingly creative. There isn't any sort of time limit on being creative, I don't believe. It's really important. I mean, it's what keeps us ticking. Yeah,
and I can see that. I think when you meet someone truly creative to their core, like yourself, you can see that passion just in the way you speak, and
it's never going to go, is it?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. So again, about age in your own career, you were listed in Campaign's 40 over 40.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did it feel to be awarded something that so directly relates to your age?
Well, I felt really proud, very privileged. I mean, there's a lot of people that get entered into that, and to be listed meant a lot, actually, particularly even more so as I'd sort of stepped out of an ad agency as such as well. So it was even more of an accolade in my mind, and I felt really chuffed. And I appreciate Dom Lipper and Richard Denny who actually nominated me. So thank you very much for that. That's really lovely. And I think it's really important because there's loads of awards like Forbes 30, under 30 and all of those things. Suddenly you get to mid-age in your 40s, and this is the moment where you're deemed to start to become invisible somewhat. I don't think you really appreciate that until you get to that age group. Yeah. It's sort of like mid-40s, 50s. And there's a lot of people starting to talk about that now. There are some amazing groups, predominantly with women being a bit older, being very invisible. It's even worse. But I think it's happening to all genders. It doesn't really matter. There is definitely an age discrimination in certain parts of the creative industry. So to have something that was set up only a few years ago, it's not been running for many years, to have something that was set up to actually acknowledge and thank people that have actually gone into that sort of over 40 age category and make them visible was a really important thing that campaign did. And for that reason, why can I not be proud? It shows, I've worked really hard and I'm still giving something back to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are. I mean, in lots of ways. So it's great to have it awarded and recognised.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful thing. It can be hard to really pinpoint those moments of pride in a career. And obviously in the design sector, there's lots of wonderful ways to celebrate, like a award season and that sort of thing. Do you think that they're still relevant and important?
I think people really do appreciate winning an award because it feels good to be acknowledged. However, I think there is definitely a slowing down of entering them, mainly financial oftentimes, but it takes a lot of time as well for agencies. Not everyone gets credited often as well. It's just a big sort of it's more of an award for the agency than the individuals that have worked really hard for it.
True.
So I think the glamour and the glitz of winning awards has started to slow down a little bit. But I do think that acknowledgement of the work that you've put in and the time and the effort and the care, just feel great, and everyone likes to be celebrated, don't they?
Totally, and it's a really important sense of pride that you get from that. I mean, looking even just on your website, on your LinkedIn, you've got accolades and awards all over. Are there any that really meant a huge amount for you, or any that you were really excited to win?
Yeah, I mean, we recently won for Here.We.Go, which I was super proud of because we're a tiny studio and going up against all the big agencies. Gold at TypoCircle for charity art direction.
Incredible.
Which was wonderful. It was for a client called The Listening Planet. And it was for the branding and the full campaign that followed after that. We created something called The Sound of Nature in the Urban Jungle. And really proud of that. It was a big moment for us. I really enjoyed, there was a wonderful piece of work that we did for Coburn's Port, and it got into the Campaign Hall of Fame, which was great. And I think the reason that sort of really stuck in my mind is because that was one of the first awards that really sort of resonated with me becoming more senior, because it was in one of my first head of design or whatever you call the heads of design now, the names keep changing, roles. So it was a moment for me to sort of cement me going into a more senior role, leading teams and creating work that we were all collectively proud of.
That's a really nice point, because I feel like when you get promoted, it's quite easy to go into that imposter syndrome territory, and you don't. It's hard to recognise how long that can go on for. I know people that have been promoted and they struggle with that still a year in. So to have that award to your name so quickly must have been a wonderful help to your confidence at that point.
It was great for the confidence, but it was also, you had pride in the whole team that made those ads. Yeah. So, and that's when you realise it's really lovely being able to celebrate all of the work that goes into the long hours often.
Yes, of course. Your agency, Here.We.Go, is all about, as you mentioned, change-making storytelling. Yeah. What change do you want to see in the creative industries in the coming years?
Wow. I do want to make sure that we do have diverse teams. We really need to, I mean, especially now in the world we seem to be going in, with the election over in the US.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really important that we really do champion all different types of people that make the creative work creative and authentic and really represent our society. So I want to make sure, we're not just going down sort of one sort of wormhole with one type of person. The other thing would be to make sure we're not replacing creative minds because it's cheaper to get AI in.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be one of our biggest challenges in the next few years. So change in the sense of using technology to make a difference to people's lives, but not to replace them. It's not necessarily sort of change making in the way I think the question that you just asked was meant, but I do think we need to, as an industry, be aware of these things and protect the human creatives and the brains around that.
Couldn't agree more. A really great point. Thank you. And finally, is there any advice or wisdom you would like to share with people entering the industry now, to young creatives?
Well, pretty much everything we've just said. I mean, you will need to be resilient. I think you need to understand that it's not going to happen straight away. A lot of people have expectations that they're going to walk straight into a job, that they're suddenly going to be, creator directing the work, and it's not going to happen. You do need to have patience. I know it's not necessarily always, financially possible, and that is again where sometimes our diversity in our industry does go a bit sort of skewed.
Yeah.
But you do need to have the patience. Believe in yourself. Really believe that you can do it. And you will get there. And that will give you the resilience to keep going. And just make sure you've got as many skill sets under your belt. But I think it's quite important to become a specialist at a couple of things.
Okay.
Like be really good at something, not just a general practitioner. Because this is what we're talking about, AI. AI can be a general practitioner. But I think going into the new career and then into the new world now, being really good at a couple of really solid things that enliven you and ignite you, and you can talk with passion is going to be really, really important in the next few years. But being aware of everything else, super important too.
Yeah.
So between that, keeping your passion and patience with resilience, I think, you'll have a wonderful career.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, Lou, we've covered so much. You're so clearly a champion of loads of things that I really care about in the industry. Diverse teams, curiosity, and really driving for purpose-driven work is so important, and you embody all of that. So thank you so much for a great chat.
Thank you for having me.